Thank you, Haris. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And good morning, depending on your time zone, of course. I will be talking on a framework for re-education of public administrators, of course, in the legal information and informatics regime. I work in the scientific service of the Hellenic Parliament, so naturally, I will be approaching the topic from the public administration side. The structure, and I will try to be as brief as possible. I will begin with a little motivation, present the state of play, our basic approach, also give a use cases for within which this whole attempt has a meaning. Now, we all talk, and the previous speakers have highlighted enough. We talk about enhanced accountability in the public sector and in policy. We talk about transparency, and of course, this is directly linked with linked open data and the development of ontologies in the certain areas of application. And this would not be possible, or not as easy possible, without the use of world standards like the W3C or the Acomantoso standard. And naturally, while all this is developed, legal informatics system and services started to pop up everywhere in the world. And this needs to be classified, of course, and the public service needs to see what should it pick from all these different systems and services. Which should we use? Should the public service use, or single services use within the administration? We have in Europe a general framework which is called the European Interoperability Framework. It starts to develop, and it starts to have very interesting systems and services within it. I will be talking about that a little bit later. But at the same time, while having all these new services and systems in place or starting to develop in different phases, we still have the same set of public administrators out there. So I think it is here proper to start discussing about a certain educational framework for public administration. In general, there are three possibilities to advance the capacity of your administration. You can hire new people. You can always bring in new blood, let's say, educated, highly skilled personnel in terms of legal informatics in this particular case. So you can bring out job postings and people may respond, or experts like the ones that the universities are educating. They can be educated, and then the public service can hire them. That's an interesting approach. That's a necessary approach, but it might take longer than necessary. I'm not dealing with that right now and within my speech. Then you have the option to educate the existing administrators. And then there's an intermediate case or option. You can hire new people, and then through the national schools of governance, you can channel them, you can provide them fast-track education on special legal informatics systems. And today I'm going to deal particularly with this option. So how national schools of governance can be used to advance education in public administration instances. Of course, within this whole, let's say, regime of education, any government needs to find a balance, a trade-off. How many new people you're going to hire, how many are you going to re-educate, and which parameters a government should pick, and how they should be scaled. These things need to be taken under careful consideration. And today I'm going to talk about that. Now, the approach I'm proposing is relatively straightforward. First, a government needs to find out what exactly it is to teach to public administrators. As we said before, there is the European framework, the relevant framework of interoperability, and its systems. So there is a starting point. One could start from there. Another thing would be, okay, the Greek public administration has some 500,000 employees. Okay, whom to educate there? So a stakeholder analysis should be carefully conducted in order to find out who are the people that are going to be educated. Another very interesting issue is, all right, now we have found whom to educate. Who will do this job? So who are the experts? Are there experts within the public sector? There might be some. So the state, the government, the relevant institution needs to find them in order to contract them so that they can teach others in a train-the-trainer approach, for instance. Or they can go in the private sector and find some people that are willing to advance the public sector employees. And always there is the university, the universities, the national or international ones that can offer within programs their programs to public administrators, as they already do. Now, by which means can this education go forward? There's always the traditional vis-a-vis physical education. But in the pandemic, we have found out that there might be also another way, via online education, synchronous or asynchronous. And it has been already mentioned, the MOOCs. You can develop programs that that are for the mass consumption, let's say, of public administrators. Now, this is pretty much theoretical, and anybody would come up with something like that. In our particular case, in the Greek case, we have started to use that in the real world within our National School of Governance, which is called the National School of Public Administration and Local Governance. Now, what we have done is we have created an innovative program. Actually, it is a laboratory that has been launched a couple of months ago, and it has finished already, as the semester has finished just a couple of weeks ago. And we have educated the first administrators in the use of a very special instrument. It's called LEOS. It's a legislation editing open software, which lies within the European interoperability framework. You could take a look. So this is a software, a web-based tool, an open source web-based tool that can be used to draft legislation. And we have used the vehicle of our National School of Public Administration to educate a small set of public administrators. Now, an interesting question would be, and I want to be forthcoming here, well, how did you do a lab within the pandemic? And you would be very right, because we created this as a lab before the pandemic, but unfortunately it needed to be, let's say, repurposed, the whole approach. We created a demonstration, a video or digital demonstration of the lab. And we are currently in the evaluation phase to see, well, how did it go? Did these people, these young public administrators, did they gain something out of this? And how we will proceed? And we are currently in a phase where we create the new, or design the new the steps for this education in legal informatics, by offering courses for the wider administration, and not only for an isolated, let's say, group of experts within the national school that were interested in digital services. An issue I would like to mention is the following. I asked the rhetoric question earlier: do we have enough expertise within the public sector to educate our people? The answer is actually no. So what we did is we asked for technical support from a team I have the honor to lead, the Hellenic OCR team, which is a broad team, an interdisciplinary team of 35 experts across 8 countries. And they helped us develop this laboratory and did some testing in cooperation with a European Union instance, the DigiDigit within the European Commission. Now, and the final issues I would like to mention are the conditions for something like that to happen. You need political will, so you need or so to say, the permission to start designing such systems. Then you need a very intensive stakeholder consultation, including EU instances and agencies, of course, universities, and the private sector. As we said, there is not enough currently expertise within the public administration, certainly not in Greece, and I doubt whether this is the case also in many other countries in the EU. Of course, you need a long-term strategy, an educational strategy, and an action plan to implement this strategy. This is not there. What I have presented is just an approach. If asked, obviously we can develop a strategy and such an approach, such an action plan. And last but not least, you need to prioritize. There is a plethora of tools, of legal informatics tools and services. So you need to cherry pick the ones that are interesting for the public sector. So you need to prioritize. And when you have done this, you can start developing specific programs, educational programs for your administrations. Thank you for your attention, and I am at your disposal for any questions.
Yeah, I will start with a question. Well, we have devoted two last days on speaking and discussing about the AI and how it can be used, or machine learning actually, and how it can be used in progressing, let's say, the public services, or even the administrative services, like the ones that you presented on how we are dealing or drafting or managing legal information. Do you think that there will be, except Leos that you presented, and of course it's a recommendation from ISA², and it's a very helpful tool. Do you think that there is something visionary that we could use or we can borrow from the domain of AI in order to help all these functions to be more quick, to speed up things, and etc.
That's a great question. Of course, for a demonstration or for a demonstrator, we needed to select something that works imminently and produces results. So you know, obviously, Leos, it's an open source tool, but nevertheless, we had to invest a considerable amount of energy to make it work in for our showcase. Now, regarding artificial intelligence, there are tools, obviously, that we could select for such a demonstrator, for a next demonstrator. You could practically take any machine learning tool from the or from deep learning tool and apply it to existing open data, for instance, from the Hellenic Parliament. This is something we try actually right now. You could take the proceedings, the minutes from the Parliament, and try to do text analytics on these texts, on the open data version of these texts, so that you can try to understand how political discourse is developing over time, and maybe extract some very interesting issues and recommendations for the political system. Yes, things like that can be used, and we use it, but on the research field to date. There are some organizations like the Athena Research Center that have considerable expertise doing that. And we tried also we rely also on their expertise in order to apply it into our very specific parliamentary data set. And of course, there's the Democritus Research Center that they have developed an excellent center for document intelligence. So indeed, since we talk about the public sector, and the public sector creates documents, document analytics and AI for assisting this analytics would be very interesting, in my opinion.